Welcome to The Path. This podcast is a production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Welcome back to the Path Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Tarkington, and today we have our guest, Randy Nash Jr. I'm excited about having him today. He is the owner of Sumner Funeral and Cremation. Did I say that right?
You did.
Got the name right. Great.
Good job.
He has an interesting story. Randy and I have known each other for at least 20 years, I guess now, something like that.
At least.
And both see each other come up. He used to be a reserve deputy, so we'd see each other at night and stuff when we were both working, and seeing the changes in our lives and everything over these past 20 years has been something exciting to see for both of us. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad to have him here. Randy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was looking back in some stuff I was trying to find. I thought I may have had your Hendersonville PD trading card.
I avoided ever having one of those made.
So I was really hoping I would find something like that so I can embarrass you, even though nobody would be able to see it, but couldn't find anything like that.
Yeah, we could have posted
the search
in the
is
show
still
links
on,
or something.
so.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a long search because I never had one. So, well, to start off, I think you are a Middle Tennessee native. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've lived in Sumner County my entire life. I've never lived anywhere else. I grew up here in Hendersonville, and my wife's from Gallatin, so when we got married, we made our home in Gallatin. That's where we live now. But I grew up most of my life right here in the middle of Hendersonville. We lived in Blue Ridge, just right down the street here from the church. And my parents, when I was, I guess, a sophomore in high school, they wanted to downsize because they knew we wouldn't be there forever, so they bought a house out. We moved out near Beach High School off Long Hollow Pike, and they still live out there in the Shackle Island community, which is a beautiful place as well.
Now, I know you have one brother. Is that all your siblings?
Yeah, just my brother Philip. He's younger than me. We're almost exactly 28 months apart.
Okay. So you grew up here?
I'm older and better looking.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. You grew up here.
And huskier, too.
And I know you went to Good Pasture. Was that from kindergarten all the way through?
I actually started at Good Pasture in 3-year-old preschool. So I was a lifer at Good Pasture. My kids go there now. But yeah, I started at 3 years old and graduated from Good Pasture in 2006.
And my kids go to the Good Pasture's biggest rival, Davidson Academy.
Yeah,
so.
I can't say the names we called Davidson Academy on the podcast. It's a good school, too. And actually, the president now of Davidson Academy, Dr. Judd, was my high school principal at Good Pasture back in the day, if you didn't know that.
So, you went to Good Pasture. What were you involved in growing up as you're going through school?
So in middle school, I played football, and then I got involved in 7th grade into the athletic training program at Good Pasture. We had an athletic trainer. His name was Chris Snoddy. He's since passed away, but he was a really good guy, and had a tremendous athletic training program there at Good Pasture, and was a student trainer and a manager on the basketball team from 7th grade through 12th grade. And actually my senior year, I can't remember if my junior or senior year, we actually went all the way to the Final Four in the state basketball tournament. That was really cool. But I was involved in the football program some. I also helped with the junior varsity baseball team. Just when you go to Good Pasture, it's a pretty small knit group of people. I think I graduated with 88 people. I think that's right. So it's a small knit group, so everybody knows everybody, and still lots of my classmates have kids. We have both my kids are in 1st and 4th, and I have guys and girls that I graduated with have kids in both classes, which is pretty neat, which Jamie probably has.
Yeah, we have the same thing. So, maybe not necessarily her class, but people in the same age range and everything. Yeah. It's pretty cool to see that. And then I'm sure Good Pasture does the same thing. They'll do like a breakfast every year, a legacy breakfast.
They do. Yeah, they actually that's kind of new to Good Pasture. They do that. But that's pretty cool that they do that too. And they have, other events, and they really try to keep the alumni engaged.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, one of my coaches when I was involved in the basketball program is now the president of the school. So that's it's a good school and it's in a good place and heading in a really good direction.
So, growing up, going to a Christian school, were you involved in church also growing up?
Yes, I grew up going to church here at First Baptist Hendersonville my entire life.
I was confused on that because I know Good Pasture is a Church of Christ based school, so I didn't know if you went to a Church of Christ.
I didn't. No, I did not.
You believe in having instruments when we have music?
I do. I'm a Baptist sinner that went to the Church of Christ school.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of Church of Christ influence in my life as a young child because that's what I was around, and a lot of the male teachers at Good Pasture were also Church of Christ ministers, and we had some just tremendous role models and people that worked there that were heavily influential in my life and still are. And so, but now I went. I remember when we were at the old church still here in Hendersonville. I remember a little bit of that, but yeah, I've got lots of memories growing up going to church here, and I was accepted Christ as a younger child. I was 8 or 9, but I actually wasn't baptized just until that's bad. I can't remember. Bruce Chester is going to be upset with me for not being able to remember that.
But fairly in the past couple of years.
I want to say 21 or 22. 21, I think. In the lake. I did the lake baptism. So I thought that was.
But your kids were able to see that?
They were, yeah. And my daughter, she was baptized summer of 2024, and my son is 7. He's still figuring everything out, but I think that he knows Jesus and loves Jesus, and it's just a matter of time. So
that was one of the questions I was going to ask you: is when did you become a Christian? But
yeah,
you just
I can't
had a
remember
long
if I was
pause.
8 or 9.
To me, it's funny you had that long break in becoming a Christian and being baptized with your Church of Christ influence, just because of some of the belief. And we're not going to get into all that, but because of some of their beliefs, that's just kind of that strikes me as odd.
So, Good Pasture is a Christian school first,
right?
And it technically is. It does. It was affiliated and is still affiliated with the Church of Christ, but a lot of there's some teachers that are members here of Good Pasture, that work at Good Pasture, and that was. I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know when there was a shift in some of the rules and stuff at the school, but it's not as they want you to be a Christian, to be a member of a church and involved in a church that's Bible-based Christian church,
right?
But not necessarily. I think I use my air quotes, Church of Christ.
Oh yeah, I mean, but, when we die and go to heaven, there's going to be Methodist, Church of Christ, Baptist, all this.
I heard and what I do for a living, which we're going to talk more about that. But I had a funeral one time with a Baptist minister and a Catholic priest, and the priest looked.
This sounds like a really bad joke.
It's not. It's a true story. He said. He told the priest told the Baptist minister. He said, you have your way of doing it, and I have mine. He said, but we're all, the end game is the same. The end of the prize is the same at the end.
Right.
And I just always thought that's an interesting way of looking at it. And I will say that growing up, I wasn't as involved in church as I probably should have been. Because we got a lot of church at school. Not that that's an excuse by any means, but. As I became an adult and my wife, when we met, we became, we were heavily involved in she grew up at First Baptist Church in Gallatin. We were involved there, and then started coming here, I guess, around, post-COVID times, really, as soon as we could come back in person, we started coming back here to Hendersonville and have been here ever since, and it's a great place.
It is.
Great church family, great people. Mediocre podcast, but
that's true. Yeah,
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it's great. And I asked you about what you're involved in high school, and one of the things we talked about the other day is when you started in the funeral business. Basically, you're in high school. You were 14 years old.
Yes.
I think is what you said,
so,
which seems really odd because it's not your family business.
It's not. So actually. I grew up in the car business. My family owned and operated a Lincoln Mercury dealership in Rivergate for 25 years called Bob Williams Lincoln Mercury. That was my grandfather. And I loved the car business, still love cars. would have a whole bunch of them if I could. But I just never felt that's where I was supposed to be. My grandfather actually died when I was 5. He had a heart attack sitting next to me at the dinner table.
Oh, wow.
It was in 1993. And his funeral was right here at First Baptist Church in the worship center. And I remember everything about it, from start to finish, everything. And that probably, Tom Bowers was the funeral director. You know Tom.
Yeah.
And he's probably the reason why I do this every day, just because the way that I saw him treat our family, the way that he treated me as a child. And then over the next 5 or 6 years, we had like 8 or 9 deaths in our family. So every time you turned around, we were at the funeral home. It kind of became we were calling Garrett's best customers for several years. And around the end of my 8th grade year of middle school, my dad said, it's almost summertime, and I had a job when I was 12, and you're 14, so you need a job. I said, well, I'll just go work at the dealership with you guys. And he said, do you really want to do that? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, no, not really. And he said, I really would like you to get some experience working somewhere else that's not working for your family. He said, because I know what will happen. You'll work some, you'll play some, you'll work some, and you don't need to do that. You need to go work somewhere else. And so he had a friend that owned a funeral home up in Jolt, and his family did. And I went to work for them when I was 14. That's June of 2022, so this June will be 24 years. June of 2002, not 2022. It'll be 24 years of being in the funeral service industry. And I learned a lot of great lessons and learned how to. The Anderson family that owned that funeral home really taught me how to take care of people. And almost all of them are passed away. One of the sons is still alive and owns it now with his nieces, and it's still in business. They've been there since 1952. And so the year I went to work there was their 50th year in business, which is, and now they've been over 70 years, which is, it's a testimony to what they're doing and taking care of people for that long. The same family, in business for that long is pretty remarkable. And so when I was 17, I had the opportunity to come to work here in Hendersonville with Tom, and he was the manager of what's just down the street here at Hendersonville, Memory Gardens and Funeral Home, and it was owned by a man named Bill Gregory. And so I went to work for Tom and for Bill when I was 17. I worked there for 15 years, and in 20, I guess am I bypassing questions?
No.
In 2020, Bill decided he was going to step back and kind of retire a little bit, even though if you ever met him, you would see he's not really retired. He's just doing something different. He's a really active guy. And he sold the businesses to a corporation out of Canada called Park Lawn, and they took over the businesses on January 31st, 2020. And I resigned March the 3rd and bought our first place in Gallatin. And then my business partner, Nathaniel, and I bought the second place in Hendersonville in October of 21. And almost 5 years ago in October. And last year we served 450 families between both of our locations. And I told a guy this today. Actually, I met with a family today, and I say this in total truthfulness that I told him, you're standing in an answered prayer right here, because I prayed about this and for this. And I love what I do. It can be stressful at times, but I get to come to work today. I get to try to make a difference in somebody's life. I get to deal with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. And I get to take care of the people of the community that I live in, the community that I'm from. And, what's a greater blessing than that? So,
Yeah.
It is a great blessing. There are greater blessings than that, but it's a great blessing for me.
It seems really odd for you as a 14-year-old to get to start off in the funeral business when it is not a family-owned business. So it seems like if it's family-owned business, it just kind of comes naturally that, hey, this is what you're going to be doing, especially in Seems like especially the funeral homes in some of the smaller rural communities,
Yeah,
are
for
long
sure.
time family owned.
A lot of them are. Yeah, I mean, where you're in Paris, the Ridgway family. I mean, they're like
there's McAvoy and Ridgway.
yeah, so Eli Ridgway did his Brad Ridgway's son, which you know Brad, I think.
I know that's where my parents have all their arrangements at.
Yeah. His son did his internship with us through mortuary school last year, and I think he is the 4th generation of that family. Maybe, I'm not sure, 3rd, 4th, 5th, something like multi-generational.
It's
So
long
pretty
enough
cool.
ago that the funeral home used to run the ambulance service.
Exactly, yeah.
Which just seems
Well, in Paris, that was like last week. So
yeah.
But so my business partner Nathaniel, which I think you've met him before, he's a 6th generation funeral director. His family was in the funeral business before the Civil War.
Wow.
His family's funeral home.
That's a long time.
Somebody else owns it now, but it's still in business in North Carolina, where he's from originally. And he started working with his grandfather in the funeral home when he was like 9 years old. It's pretty cool. It's I joke with him that if he gets a cut, that embalming fluid comes out instead of blood. But
So as a 14-year-old going to work in the funeral home, what are you doing? Do they just throw you like right at it? Hey, we're throwing you to the wolves here. Let's go embalm a body.
it wasn't that quick, but I started off helping with visitations and services, and really just the first couple weeks just observing and seeing what happened and how things worked and what they did and what they didn't do, and you'd learn how to dress, how to act, how to talk to people, how to be respectful, how to care about them, how to see that what they're dealing with is bigger than anything that we're dealing with right now. And I mean, the Andersons lived there. They at one point lived in that building above the building, and when I worked there was people that lived upstairs. They actually were the people that at night, I guess part of their payment, they probably paid rent, but part of their payment was they cleaned the funeral home every night. Every night we left, they cleaned. And but they had the Andersons actually built a house on the back of the property. So when you pulled in the driveway, you look back, there's this really pretty ranch house right there. That's where they lived. And they were always there. Nothing. I mean, they didn't leave. I mean, they had a cell phone when I worked there that only got turned on when they left Joelton. Because if they weren't there, they had a phone in their house that rang. The funeral home phone rang in their home. We had pagers. We all had pagers, and that's how we communicated. And we had, I had a cell phone. I guess I was 15 or 16 when I finally got a cell phone. I don't know, maybe younger than that.
I mean, I was like 21 when I got one. So
yeah, but you're kind of
I'm a little older.
You're a little older than me. So, it was truly people taking care of their community, and it made a big impact on me as a child, literally a 14-year-old child.
Yeah,
and was not related to them whatsoever. They took a chance. They put they took me under their wing and took a chance on I wasn't even from up there, but they gave me a chance to go up there and be a part of that community. And the people there were so nice to me. And I still love Joelton. I love that area. And I've got lots of friends that are up there and from up there. And it was amazing how many connections I had up there that I didn't realize until I started working up there. And I remember the first day there, he told me to come in and work there was a visitation. And there was a gentleman that worked, he was the night man. He always worked at night. So if they had a visitation, he was there. And visitations then were till like 9, sometimes 10 o'clock. His name was Bruce Binkley. He said, "You're coming here to work with Bruce." And Bruce, he talked all the time. And he wore this big, like, diamond cluster ring on his finger. And so where he opened the door so many times, that glass door had his scratches in it perfect, where he opened the door. And the paint on the handle was worn off. I mean, the door should be in a museum somewhere. But that's what he did. If you were there, if we had a family in the building, someone was on the door all the time. No questions asked. That's the same thing we do at our funeral home. You were just there recently with Miss Wise, your wife's grandmother, and I mean, Mike Ward, that's his thing. He's on the door. He's going to be there. And Bruce would talk, and I remember one night he was telling this man about where he lived. Yeah, down the road, by this road, down that road. the guy said, "What's the name of the road you live on?" He said, "Well, it's my road." He said, "What's the name of it?" He said, "Bruce Binkley Road." And he walked off. I said, "Is your road really named Bruce Binkley Road?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, what else was I going to call it?" There's still a road in Cheatham County in Jolton called Bruce Binkley Road. Anyways, the two visitations, there was a gentleman, I'm going to say he was in his late 50s, early 60s, that had a heart attack unexpectedly. We had two chapels. And the other chapel was a 15-year-old girl that got killed in a car accident, leaving her older sister's high school graduation. It was first part of June, so people just graduate high school and stuff. And the man's granddaughter, the girl in the other room, was her best friend. And Bruce told me that, and that I remember. I don't know. I unfortunately don't remember the names. I just remember seeing how upset that girl was, and seeing how the families and all the things that happened and transpired. And ironically enough, Mike Ward just sent me a text. My 84-year-old employee who texts better than most kids. I shouldn't say 84-year-old employee, 84-year-old father figure idol who I want to be like Mike Ward when I grow up. But because most people that listen to this from our church know Mike. But the first room, when I walked in the building that day, I'm going to say it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was Robert Anderson Sr., and then Robert Anderson Jr., who was my dad's friend. And he said, "Let me show you around the building so you know where everything's at." And he said, "Bruce is up here, and I'll introduce you to Bruce, and you've got to see how he closes things down, and how this happens, and how that happens." Okay. He said, "All right, we'll come in this room right here." Well, the first room he took me into was the embalming room. I mean, it was right next to the office. He opened it was like, they had these doors that like one opened out and one opened in, so you couldn't, out of privacy really, the door opened out from the hallway, but when it opened in, you couldn't see anything in there.
Right.
And truthfully, that embalming room was not much bigger than this room right here. It was a little bitty. But I remember the smell, and just walking in, everything was sterile and clean and white. And I keep hitting this stuff in here. And he said, "Well, this is the embalming room." And he said, "This is probably the most important room in the building." And he said, "We respect people that are in this room. We respect all people, but people are trusting us with their most prized possession, and this is very important in here." And I've thought that way ever since. It's the most important room in the building, because the people that the loved ones that are in our care, their families are placing their trust in us, and it's our obligation as funeral directors to accept that and treat them with the utmost dignity and respect the entire time. And so it was a heck of a summer for a 14-year-old kid. And then kept working there. I would work on the weekends. Sometimes I'd work at night after school if my parents would let me, which I wanted to work all the time. But I didn't. When I really started driving, I was there all the time. And then when I went to work in Hendersonville, it was my senior year of high school, and I had a good pasture. If you played your cards right, you could have a free period your senior year. And Randy played his cards right, and had his free period. Well, lunch was right in the middle of the day, like I'm going to say 11:40, and fifth period was after that, and my free period was fifth period. So I always got an hour and a half lunch, which was pretty smart, right?
Yeah.
So, but on odd block days, seventh period was your sports. So after sports was over with, after like basketball season was over, I didn't have anything to do. So I left school at 11:30 or 11:40, and I was done. So I would go to work, and because I knew that for a while in high school, I wasn't sure if I was going to go the athletic training route, because I really enjoyed that, and I still love that part. I mean, that was a big part of my life, and I learned so much from Chris Snoddy and him as an athletic trainer, and just as a person, a good Christian man. He was very, very good to me, and taught me so much. And going back and seeing what he did, and I mean, he truly cared about what he did with the kids at Good Pasture, and they got superior, on a superior level of care that I don't know. I'm not as in tune with what they have now as far as athletic training, but he set the precedent for that. And not just in this area, but across the country. He's actually in the Tennessee Athletic Training Hall of Fame. I think he's in the TSSAA Hall of Fame. He's had a lot of awards that were given to him both before and after he passed away. But anyways,
So when you're in high school and your job is different than anybody else in high school's job, what is that like amongst your friends? And they're like, I'm going to work. I'm going to the funeral home to go to work. What kind of reactions did you get from them, especially, early on when you first started?
Not as much as you think. It was more the teacher would give me grief about it, just joke with you a little bit. But then there was a lot of kids that were from Joelton when I worked up there, and then we started taking care of their family, their grandparents and stuff, and that was kind of neat to be around that part of it, just to see if they were the family we were serving, but I worked there and I got to be a part of that. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it is.
Not a lot of grief, honestly. It was.
Or this, like, why are you doing this? Like, did you get that kind of?
I got that from a few people, but it was a couple of family members of mine. I got that from them early on, and then when I explained it to them, and they're like, that's really, you don't choose funeral service; it chooses you.
Yeah,
and you don't just, in my opinion, you don't wake up one day and say, oh, well, that sounds like a good job. There's got to be I call it a triggering event, and I guess that triggering event was when my grandfather died. It's but as a high school, I mean, I guess I didn't really, and if they did say anything, I didn't really care. I didn't, right. I had a job, I was making money, and I mean, I enjoyed that part of it. I got to have some freedom because I had my own money, and not a lot, but I had some, and that was always neat to me. But it never has really felt like work to me. It just felt like I was where I was supposed to be. And especially in high school, it's all I wanted to do. I was ready to be done with high school and be there, And so I decided later on, there was a small potential that I could have gotten a partial scholarship for athletic training to Lipscomb University. And Chris Snoddy, the athletic trainer there, he said, that's a good opportunity. He said, but I know that you feel like that God's calling you to be a funeral director, and that's where you're supposed to be. And he said, either way, you're going to be serving people. And he said, so I graduated high school in May of 2006, and I started mortuary school in August. So,
I think people get confused when they meet you, and just because of your job, they think you're older than what you are. And that was the case in your 20s. When you were in your 20s, like, do you feel like this, because of the kind of job you have and had as a teenager, that you had to mature quicker? Like not that you didn't do some of the typical teenage stuff, because we all do, but you couldn't in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I would say this, that growing up around a family business, if you wanted to go, when I was a kid, my brother or I would go to work with my dad on Saturdays at the dealership. Saturday was usually a busy day in the car business, but was a fun day, And so if you wanted to be with the adults, you had to act like an adult, and you had to behave and act right as much as you could. And so I got to go to work with my dad and my uncles a lot, and my grandfather before he passed a little bit. And I think that helped part of it, but you grow up really quick, because it's a little bit of a shock, to just walk in there as a 14-year-old. But I also think people liked seeing that there was a person that wanted to do that and wanted to carry that torch in a way. And I wish I could find a teenager like me, because they're few and far between, right, that gets it. And I definitely, what you said, you grow up quick, and you're hanging around older people. Most of the people in the funeral home are older, and so you have to learn how to talk a different way. Doesn't sound right. Talk a different way, but you're going to have to hold conversations with people about different things and learn how to treat people and how to be treated, because they're going to treat you like an adult, right? And you have to behave the way that you have to accept that and be respectful of that and be thankful that they respect you enough to treat you that way too.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like this, like watching how you handled yourself with Jamie's grandmother and stuff. In the position you're in as a funeral director and stuff, you have to have a certain level of like stoicism towards things, because you're dealing with the family who oftentimes is going to be emotional, and you can't let yourself get emotional. You have to have empathy to where you show that you care.
Oh, yeah. But
you can't let yourself get tied up in the emotions of the moment, because you have to be able to keep them steered on the path of making the decisions that they're having to make, which are hard decisions.
And I will say this, that as I've gotten older, and I think after having kids and stuff now too, definitely changes your outlook on a lot of things. Brian, I know you agree with that. And I'll try not to get emotional right now. When you start burying your friends, it's tough. And you start, you have to be tough for people. And you have to be, as a funeral director, we're so many things. We're your advocate, we're your shoulder to cry on, we're your voice when you don't have one. We're so many things, and you need that presence of that person that can be there and be that calm in the storm for you. And we may be emotional behind closed doors, and there are times when it happens in front of people when you can't control it. I mean, it's just that's part of the deal. It's going to happen. But as a funeral director and as a funeral professional, I think that if any of them do listen to this, they will agree that there's no bigger honor when people that are your friends, just like you guys, place your trust in us to do what we do. And for because the reality is there's other funeral homes in this town and other funeral homes in areas, and you may know somebody else in the business or whatever it may be. But when you call me or call us and you place your trust in us, we're going to do everything we can do to make sure that we take care of your family and attempt to make this as easy a process as it can be. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to try. And
when I think about like the funeral homes and the funeral directors, and I'm not naive enough to think that every funeral director is a Christian. Now, you're a funeral director and you're a Christian, but all the funeral homes have a chapel in them, or most all of them do. They have some sort of chapel that is a church-like area for the funeral. How does being a Christian help you in your role as a funeral director?
Helps you have faith and helps you have hope that there's something beyond this life. And you have to be in tune with your faith and have to be and your beliefs, but you also have to be respectful of other people's.
Because not everybody that is coming to you for a funeral is a Christian.
Correct.
Or they might be of a totally different faith.
Correct. Could be a different denominations, different, we take care of everybody, and that's our job. We take care of people from all sorts of diverse backgrounds and religious backgrounds or lack thereof. And there are, that sometimes is a tough thing for sure. But also we have a job to do that we know our beliefs and we know what we believe. And if there's a time that you can try to, testify to someone a little bit, then I think that God tells you when that opportunity arises. I think you'll know. It's I think I do think that the older I've gotten in when I say the older I've gotten, just as I grew as a professional and as an adult, I definitely became more in tune with my faith and more. I deal with death I see it every single day. I was in a family's home this morning where a lady passed away. She was in hospice care, and we brought her. They called us. We brought her into our care, in Scottish Highlands, right across the street, and they called us to do a job for them and to take care of this lady, and my hope is that she's in heaven, and that body is a shell. And I jokingly say that when I get to heaven, I'm going to be in the special reserved spots for undertakers and dads of strong-willed daughters, because if you've ever met my daughter, you know that she's strong-willed. And so, and hopefully there's not going to be a lot of people wanting to yell at us for not doing their makeup right or fixing their hair wrong or something like that. Hopefully that's
Is it ever done right?
I mean, we try, but
is there always something? Well, that's just a little off.
Yeah,
well,
so
it's hard.
It happens. So, and the one thing about what I do too is that there's a lot of people we don't know the people. The family this morning, they called us a week or two ago. We spoke to them on the phone. I don't know these people at all. And I didn't know the lady, but you get to find out about people's lives and learn more about them. And that is it's a neat thing, but it's also a sad thing too, that you didn't get to meet them, before they passed. But that's where, with my faith and my beliefs, that I believe that I'll meet them one day. So, and I hope that I will.
Yeah. In the job you're in, you have to be known pretty well around town where you said you did 400 and something funerals last year, I believe.
We served 450 families. I wouldn't say we had 400 and something funerals.
Well, still, so that's 450 families that know you, and you might not remember all of them.
No.
Like you saying, I remember them, but the way you treat them has to have an impact. We'll talk at church, you can't always be witnessing to somebody by your words, but you can by your actions. Yeah. And I think that's probably what you're doing a lot is how you treat them. You treat them in a Christ-like way.
Yeah,
to where
absolutely.
Hopefully,
and I think that it gives another definition to be in the hands and feet of Jesus. I really do. I think that we are always going to in our funeral home and our company, we have two rules, and I think that anybody that works with us or for us can tell you what the two rules are. And the two rules, not necessarily are not in order of importance, are we're always going to take care of people. We're always going to do that. Whatever they need, we're going to take care of. And we're always going to do what's right. Even if it means admitting that we made a mistake or did something wrong, we're always going to do what's right. And those two principles, I should say, instead of rules, are how we run our business and how we take care of families. And those two things can be expanded on so much greater than just those two sentences. But I think that if we keep those as our main focus and kind of our mission and our goals, everything else will grow from there.
Does it take a toll on you?
Has its days.
Yeah, I think about that because of my line of work too. And there's this thing that comes out. It says most people will go through I think 4 or 5 true traumatic events in your lifetime. Have you seen this? Yeah. And a 20-year police officer will have 800.
Yeah, I mean, I was a reserve deputy for 10 years.
But as a funeral director, you're going through traumatic events, dealing with traumatic events for families every day.
You're dealing with
the worst day.
You're dealing with crisis and tragedy on a daily basis. And it's amazing. I think I've told you this before, how much law enforcement and funeral service intertwine. Not only do we, there are times we work hand in hand with escorts and unattended deaths and investigations and things like that. But also, or that guy one time that wouldn't bring the remains back that we had to remember that.
Yes.
It's a whole other story. I shouldn't even probably say that on this.
No,
podcast,
I forgot that till you said that.
I thought about it the other day. Anyways, but you're dealing with, and I said this earlier, you're dealing with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations from all kinds of backgrounds, and you don't know how they're going to react, what they're going to say, what they're going to do, and you have to be able to read them and try to anticipate what they need, or in this case, what they need, and in some cases, anticipate what they're going to do, and that's what is, I think, if there's an exciting part about what I do, that is the exciting part, that no 2 days are the same. We're going to deal with something different every day. What we do when we're making arrangements with the family may be the same order of things, right? But what we're talking about in those conferences, the goals we're accomplishing, how we're doing it is going to be, a little bit different every time. And but the biggest thing is anticipating what people want and what they need, and just listening to them. Sometimes you just got to be the sounding board, and sometimes you're the counselor and you're the minister, you're the psychiatrist, you're all those things in one.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the referee between families that don't get along, which that happens.
I'm sure
more
a lot.
than people realize.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the, I've broken up fights. I've had, literally had, Metro Police in Nashville show up to funerals before and arrest people. I've had all sorts of things that you could think of. I had a man one time that we had a funeral for his wife that day, and that night I saw him on the news doing the perp walk at Metro that they arrested him for killing her. And I mean, just had no clue that was even going on.
Yeah.
Now looking back and thinking about some of the things I saw, that probably a good possibility. But there's so many things that I could. Somebody said you should write a book. I said I could write about 6 books, but I'd have to change the names and I'd have to move away because somebody would be reading that and be like, well, that's my family, and I think that's my family.
Yeah.
So, but it definitely takes its toll, and you have to have and church, and you have to have you need hobbies, and for a long time, and I hate to say it this way, but the reserve deputy and law enforcement was kind of my hobby, and I've still got lots of friends involved in that. We have mutual friends in law enforcement. That's how you and I met, and you have to have I shouldn't say a release, but just something to focus your mind on. And so I focus on my family. That's a big thing. My wife also runs a business. Every now and then I'll have to help her with some stuff with that. But being involved here in church and being on the security team, I enjoy that. And I'm a big gun enthusiast.
We're also part of the whatever your association is for funeral directors.
Yeah, so
is it good having those peers to talk to?
Absolutely.
Is that a good
absolutely.
release of some of the tension?
I've got a group of friends that we communicate on a daily basis.
Because there's stuff they'll understand that I wouldn't understand.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not in your role.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Yeah,
I've got a group of friends that we communicate on a daily basis. Some of my best friends are funeral directors, and rightfully so. We all deal with the same stuff. And there are I'm still heavily involved in the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association. I served on that board and was president for 2 years thanks to COVID. 2019, 2020, 2021, that 2-year period. And then right now I was appointed by the governor a couple years ago to serve on the regulatory board that regulates funeral homes. It's called the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers in Tennessee. And I currently serve as the vice president of that. Next year, hopefully, if they elect me, I'll be the president of that board. And I enjoy doing that too. We actually had a board meeting today, and we hear applicants, we approve licenses, we do, we hear complaints and things like that. It's and every now and then my law enforcement experience comes in handy with that to be objective and articulate what we should do and the right things to do. And it's an interesting. You learn a lot about what you shouldn't do, but you also learn about we had some complaints today. That's just family dynamics, and the funeral director gets the blame, But that's just it happens. So
Yeah, like we talked about, we just had my wife's grandmother's funeral there. And initially they weren't going to do a funeral service here.
Yeah.
We were just going to do the graveside in Florida. And I thought, I think we need to do one, or at least do a visitation. We talked about just doing that. And then their turnout for the funeral service, there was quite a few people there.
Yeah,
the whole family was surprised.
Yeah, they had a good crowd of people. And
What's it like when you have nobody? Or like you have one family, or,
it's
especially with, a lot of times some older people, everybody else has already passed.
Yeah.
And you might have like one or two people there for the service.
It's sad. I mean, it honestly is. I mean, there's people that we have big services, we have small services.
How do you handle that? Does the whole staff go in and sit in the service? I mean, are you just there to comfort? And
if it's going to be a smaller crowd, we'll recommend using a different room or something that we can, make it a little more intimate for the people. I think that helps. But a lot of people too know that they're not going to have it. They know,
yeah,
that there's not going to, they're going to have a small turnout, and they'll do something smaller or something more intimate. And then there's a lot of people that think they're not going to have anybody, but they end up having a lot of folks. We had a funeral last week that was smaller, but not the smallest I've ever had for sure. But the family told me this is who I thought would be here, and they had a lot of people that came through the visitation. But a lot of times, and now funeral attendance has changed. And I try to not say post-COVID as much anymore, but you can't help it sometimes. But after all that we went through with that, and people got used to not doing certain things, and so they just haven't started back. Or they go to visitation because they can make those hours. They can't make the funeral or something like that. And I'm going to take a little bit of credit for kind of planting those seeds when you and I and your father-in-law first met to talk about arrangements for Miss Wise. I kind of threw that seed out there. I planted that seed about we can do something, and you probably should and that's what we are. We're not funeral followers. We're funeral directors.
Yeah.
And our job is to guide people and direct them in a way to make sure that the person's life is celebrated. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this to you because you were in that room when I said it, but you can come in and if you want to buy the most expensive thing we have, that's fine. If you want to buy the cheapest thing we have, that's fine. I don't care. What I care about is making sure that you see value in what we've done for you, and that your loved one's life is celebrated in some kind of way. And that may not be a funeral in a chapel or a funeral in a church. It may be a person that, it's a toast in their favorite bar or restaurant, or, going to, on their boat, or going to the boat dock and spreading their remains in the lake, whatever it may be. It's not, there's no cookie cutter and there's no box anymore. It's what people want. And we are a product of what the consumer demands as a business. And so we want to make those things happen. And and there was a fair amount of people that came to her, Sunday school class, and people from, you had some of your folks from work came, and there's lots of, and people, it's not just about the person that passed away, that, it's
about the people
family
still living,
that are, right,
and showing
people,
support.
People want to come and show support and pay respects. And sometimes that's hard because some people just shut you down, and that's okay. We're not going to push. I'm not going to force something on anybody at all.
Yeah, one of the things I saw for the first time at your funeral home here in Hendersonville was a couple years ago when Teddy Loftus died, and I come up there and Teddy Loftus used to be a Hendersonville officer. Then he was a Sumner County deputy. He never really retired. He was working in some small town.
He was the chief.
And
the whole town, yeah.
I get there, and there's a room full of Amish people. And they paid a driver because they don't drive. Yep. They were true Amish, not Mennonite. So Moses. They don't drive, and they paid a driver to drive them there because of the relationship that he had with them. And go into the, I thought I was in the wrong room at first because
that man's name was Moses. I cannot remember his last name. And he and his wife and their kids, they all came. The whole family came. They were from down in Etheridge, Lawrence County, where, which is one of the little towns he worked in down there. And he, like you said, he built a relationship with them, and they came up to the funeral home, and
I was impressed by that, though.
It was really. I thought,
and
that was really
I think
cool.
Teddy and Ashley were impressed by that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
That they did that, and
I walked in and little Teddy had this like tube of meat in his house. I said, "What is that?" He said, "Moses brought me a tube of bologna." I said, well, "Okay." Yeah. But so my dad used to let Teddy. My dad at his business has a big ice machine for his workers, and so they don't work on the weekends. So Teddy would go down on the weekends. So he'd go by Friday, and he would work the weekends down at this police department, and he would stop and fill up. He would empty the ice out because it's just going to sit there and over the weekend, and they don't make more ice. And he would take it down to Moses and them for the use and stuff. Where they sent back my mom and dad eggs and vegetables and breads, all this stuff. And so I told Moses, he said, your dad's Randy with the ice. It's funny, but that reminds me. I need to call little Teddy. We need to go down there and visit them. I think that would be cool to do.
wow. Yeah, growing up in a Christian home, going to a Christian school, and then working in a field that had a pretty heavy Christian influence. Did you ever have like a rite of passage into manhood, or was it like, hey, you're 14 working in a funeral home, you're going to be a man right now?
A rite of passage into manhood.
And I asked that because most other cultures, they have some kind of rite of passage to manhood. Ours doesn't. The American male culture does not.
Yeah, I don't really think so. My father is a former Marine, and one of the things that we talked about this before we started, about routines and things like that. And so
Some standards.
Right. I've got like a routine every day that if my morning doesn't go the way it kind of throws my whole day off. I take the kids to school, I come back, I get dressed, I get, this is too much information. I put my socks on before I put my pants on because I don't try to wrinkle my pants when I put my socks on. I put my shoes on before I put my dress shirt on so I don't wrinkle my dress shirt. My people call it a gig line, and I'm kind of belly, so it's hard. But my shirt and my belt are going to line up with the seam of my pants. I'm going to, things like that. My tie is going to always meet the middle of my belt buckle because it's just the way it's supposed to be. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but it's just the way my mind works. And it's I guess my dad. So my dad's taught me so many things, but he taught me the most important thing my dad taught me was how to take care of your family and how to provide for them. And I think that I learned how to be a man over the years watching him every year. Every year you get to do something. As you get older, it's like you get one more thing you can do and different things like that. And so I used to, and I probably got it in my phone, in my notes somewhere. I did this thing on Father's Day a year or two ago, and 10 things that he taught me, and one of those, that your family is you always take care of your family, and that's and there's taking care of your family is more than just physically taking care of them. It's providing for them financially, providing for them spiritually, providing for them in so many different ways, and being an example for your kids. I think about this all the time, that I want to be an example to my daughter of the man she should marry by the way I treat my wife. And I think that any married man will agree to this, that sometimes we fail at those things. I know I have, but and I want to show my son, and I think my dad would agree with that you want to show your sons to be how to be the man that they should want to be. And my son, my son is absolutely obsessed with law enforcement. We were at Green's Police Supply on Saturday, and you would have never seen anything. It was poor Tom that works in there was overwhelmed with Rand. Whew. But I love that he knew that he found that out about when he started getting older, and he learned about that, and he started seeing. He was never, obviously, I was already out of law enforcement before he was born, but he sees pictures, and he's seen. I still got some of the stuff, and he really, he's he started collecting challenge coins. That's his new thing. He is mad that he doesn't have as many as I do, but that's a whole other story.
He has time to catch up.
Right. And but I think you're right, though. There's no, there's no rite of passage in a way.
Right.
So,
yeah. And you kind of answered this, but, growing up in the home that you did with a strong father and everything, and seeing everything you see in society with working in the funeral business and then also your work in law enforcement, what is the importance of having a strong Christian man in his home and in society?
oh, man, I need to have a tough one.
Or can you tell a difference when you're helping a family through this that does have that Christian backing,
Absolutely,
and one that doesn't? And
Absolutely.
what kind of difference is that?
Sometimes there's just no guidance at all, and people, and granted, that's what we're there for. I know that, but some people just have no concept of what to do.
Yeah,
all, and have no. And then from law enforcement, I mean, I know the statistics are out there, but obviously there was more males we dealt with than females, right? That were in, either being arrested or in situations where they were in trouble. And I bet if you went and looked at their background, they were from a single parent home or a single mother home more than none, or maybe there was no parents. I mean, I'll go back and use my dad as an example. That my dad, my dad and his brothers and his younger sister were taken from their parents by DCS when my dad was 6. My dad and his brothers lived for 6 years in the Tennessee Preparatory School, which was basically the state orphanage for boys, which is, where the THP office is now on Foster Avenue.
yeah.
That was TPS. And my grandfather divorced my biological grandmother and married the woman who I consider my grandmother. And they got them out, and she raised my dad and his brothers. And, my father and his brothers were destined to fail. But, my dad has built basically 2 successful careers in the car business, and now what he does with this traffic control business. And he's almost 70 years old. His older brother was a firefighter for over 40 years in Metro and retired. His younger brother was in the Navy, retired from the Navy, and then retired from the fire department here in Hendersonville. And so, they were almost set up for failure, but they had a family that cared about them, and I'm not going to say a father that really encouraged them, but a mother figure, their stepmom, but who was their mom, who encouraged them, and people that became figures to them in their lives that encouraged them to do better. And I guess my thing is that, and I don't do this enough. I don't know if I've ever done this at all, but if you see someone who needs that positive figure, try to be that figure in their life. Take care of your family, but try to be that. I see, and I'll be honest with you, and I'm not trying to brown nose you or anything, but I see you doing that. I see you doing that with people. I see you taking younger officers under your wing a little bit. I've seen that. You bring them to church. You find a way to minister to them, and you may not realize you're doing it, but you're doing it. And that's one thing that I don't do enough of. That I want to figure out how to, the next generation is mentoring the next generation in any kind of profession, whether it's law enforcement, funeral service, whatever it is so important. But just the next generation of people too, and just making sure that your kids know that the Lord will provide for you if you're faithful to Him, and put him first and in your life, and you will prosper, and pray to him for what you want, what you need, and be descriptive in your prayers. And my Uncle Bobby told me that, and my Uncle Bobby is, I jokingly call him my spiritual counselor or guide, but he was a deacon here and taught Sunday school, and he has a nonprofit ministry and stuff now that he runs called Encouraging Moments with Bobby Williams. Shameless plug for that. He told me that a long time ago. I told him, what I was really struggling when my company I worked for was being sold, and I told him about all that. He said, God hears lots of prayers. Be descriptive. Tell him what you want. And it's not necessarily always going to happen, but if it's in his will for you, it will happen. And I think that, but it's definitely there's definitely times when you can tell what in people's backgrounds where there's been either no Christian influence, or some people. I've seen that, and I've seen some people that are so mad at God, like, why did you do this to me? Instead of saying, look at what you have, and God, how can you help me? He's here to help you. He wants to help you. And things happen to people that are awful, but he can help you through it, and he can help you weather the storm. And sometimes the storm may be long, but there's always an end to it at some point. And I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I hope that I'm making some sense of some of the things I said.
It made me think of, and I may have said it on this podcast before, but the group Echelon Front, I really like them. I just went to a conference they had, and they had put out this quote it's a Navy SEAL that passed away. His name was Seth Stone. But basically, when he was early on in the SEAL teams, he wanted so bad to fit in, but what he needed, he goes, I wanted so bad to fit in, but what I needed to be was led.
Absolutely.
And I think about in the Christian aspect, you have young Christians, but even not just young ones, but all of us, we always want so bad to fit in, but we need to be led by each other. That iron sharpens iron. Yeah. But then I think about, you coming up in the funeral business, which is a different type of business, and you were led, because if you started acting in a way that you shouldn't, that's going to hurt their reputation. But then you go into the police world as a young man. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different world. And there's stuff that goes on, not just in the police world, but in other businesses, that's not right. And, I think about when I was 20 years old, starting off in law enforcement, would I do and say stuff that I knew was wrong because I wanted to fit in? Yeah. I would.
Yep.
And as you get older, hopefully as you're younger, you learn that's not right. That right. You do need to, stay true to your principles. Yeah. If you're Christian, stay true to your Christian beliefs instead of worrying about so much fitting. But we want to fit in with our peers. When we go to work, we don't want to be the weird guy.
Right.
But being a Christian is not being a weird guy. If you stand for your beliefs and everything, what I have found is people aren't going to, they're not going to ostracize you or anything. A lot of times they might actually come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, I've heard this in like management training and stuff over the years, that so many teams of any kind of industry, and you'll totally get this when I say it, that are overmanaged and underled. And I'm gonna pick on Gallatin Police Department for just a second in a positive way. That, like, I know that the chief and the assistant chief of Gallatin Police Department are Christian men.
Right.
I mean, I know both of them personally and know that they are. And I've done funerals with Bill Sorrells more than once. And probably the biggest funeral of my career was, Sheriff Weatherford died, and he spoke at that funeral and did a tremendous job. And I mean, I still think about things he said that day, honestly. But I think it's really just as a younger male, if you're struggling with life and struggling with different things, is finding a Christian male to mentor you and to help guide you and help lead you, whether it be to the Lord, to understanding salvation and understanding what it means to ask Jesus into your heart, but also what it means to lead a Christian life and to I always tell my kids, be the light in someone's life, because we never know what someone else is dealing with, and this is something Tom Bowers excuse me, used to always say, and it sounds kind of silly, but it makes perfect sense, and it's easy to be nice to people. It takes more of an effort to be rude to someone or hateful or upset with them, because being nice comes naturally for 99% of society, hopefully. And it's easy to be nice to people, and if you can find a way to live your life in that way, I think that's being a positive influence on people. Yeah. So many, and in law enforcement, so many people, so many people are all automatically are defensive with you and defiant. And I always tried to be respectful to people. And is there a time to do what you got to do and take care of business? 100%. But be respectful first. And a lot of times, you can de-escalate a situation just by the way you treat someone with the first couple minutes of interaction, maybe the first 30 seconds, especially when, on traffic stops. You know how that is. If you're stopping and it may be a seatbelt, it could be a speeder, it could be anything. You've stopped them in the middle of their day, and they're either going to be nice or they're going to be mad. There's not really any in between.
Right.
And I always would introduce myself and explain why and be respectful and try to be, and I would even tell them, have a great day. I hope you have a good rest of your day. You might have just got a citation, but I'm still going to say that to you.
Yeah.
And I've told this to countless funeral directors over the years, and would tell this to any of my staff today, that whatever you're going through in your personal life, you check it when you walk in the door, you check it at the door, because nothing that we're dealing with is any worse than what these people are dealing with.
That's really hard to do sometimes.
It is absolutely hard to do.
And I bet it's even harder to check what you're dealing with at work when you go into the door at home.
So, yeah, it is sometimes. But
I get in trouble for that. So,
And of course, your wife, maybe not as much as my wife, doesn't always want to hear about your day. Not in a bad way, just because she
my day's not exciting anymore.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but it's you have to check that at the door too, because when you go home, you've got other things to take care of. You got a family and a wife, or a wife and a family to take care of and to be with and to be present with. And my phone has been, it's in this seat right here, but it's been going off the whole time since we've been sitting here. And it's all work related.
Yeah.
And it's 6:15, 6:16.
I would think in your line of work, it never ends. There's no it's 8 to 4. It is 24/7.
Yeah. You're always on. You're always, everything. And I've a friend of mine is a funeral director in Michigan. He's a professor at a mortuary college too, and he's 1,000 times smarter than I will ever be. He's got a master's degree and a PhD, and he's a tremendous individual. His grandmother passed away last week, and we were talking. He said, this is really hitting me harder than I thought it would. And I was like, we feel we're so empathetic for people so much, and we're so into being with people and not, worrying about their needs, that we forget that we're human too. And I said, it's okay not to be okay. And I've said that to people before, but I said that to him the other day in a text message. I said, it's okay not to be okay. And he said, I needed to hear that. And he told me about giving a eulogy. He said, I choked up pretty bad, and I was a little bit worried about it because, my bosses were there and my employees were there. And I said, who cares? You are a human being who experienced a loss. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay not to be okay. It is. And the thing that I think that as the funeral business, funeral industry, that we have to remember that, and know that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to show emotions, but it's also part of our job to contain that some, so we can be there for the people we need to be there for.
Yeah, you've talked about a lot of the people in the past, so I'm pretty sure when I ask you this, you're going to have some people. I would say the ones from Jolton. Tom, has anyone been a mentor to you, and what impact did that have on you? And have you mentored any men, and what impact does this have? Probably your dad, too.
I don't know that I've mentored any men myself.
You probably have.
I probably have. I don't realize it.
And when I ask that, and I tell this on the other episodes, it doesn't mean you have a formal, like, hey, we're meeting once a week, but how you people will watch how you carry yourself and how you act, and that's a mentorship that you might not even realize you're doing.
I would say my dad for sure has been a mentor, still is a mentor. I talk to my dad every day on the phone. We're actually working on a little business venture right now, and it excites me that my dad, at almost 70 years old, is still, into being an entrepreneur and starting something new, which is like I need something else to do. But
right
here we go.
Funeral business, furniture store.
Yeah, I've got all this spare time. But anyways, but for sure, my dad, my uncles have been mentors in positive ways. Probably taught me things they shouldn't have taught me over the years, but that happens. That's what uncles are supposed to do. My Uncle Bobby's been a big spiritual mentor to me in a lot of ways. And Chris Snoddy, the guy I talked about that was an athletic trainer at Good Pasture, he was a huge mentor to me in life, especially in my teenage years and in high school. We went to all sorts of basketball tournaments and football and baseball, and helped him do all. I don't know if I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to be able to tape a pretty mean ankle, for football players and basketball players and stuff like that.
I don't think you have to do that to your customers now.
No. But if you hurt yourself and you need an ankle taped, I can probably figure it out. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day. Me and somebody else were talking about it. Some of my basketball coaches, Keith Edwards and Jeff Bixman in high school, were big mentors to me. At the sheriff's office, Chris Tarlicky was he's still a good friend of mine. He was the mentor to me. He was the lieutenant on. I primarily worked second shift at the sheriff's office, which at the time when they worked 8-hour shifts, that was the busiest shift. We had a lot of fun. And Aaron Pickard was our sergeant. He was a mentor to me, and they're both still friends of mine. Don Parker and Eddie Cripps were mentors to me. Still friends of mine. And a good friend of mine, Ryan Thogmartin, has been a mentor to me and kind of I must say, a life coach in a way, and really taught me about how to live life, how to in life and in business, not to be bold, and that blessings follow boldness. That's something he told me years ago. And, he ironically sent me a message Saturday evening, and we connect every few months. He's in the funeral industry too, and he's on the marketing side of it, and is just a tremendous individual. And he told me that blessings follow boldness, and be bold in what you do, and I believe that for sure. And being bold can mean so many things, right? But I really truly believe that blessings follow boldness, and that's one of those other things that could just expand and expand and expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. But,
You know, I think about that as I ask you that question. You need that 14-year-old like you to come along that you're able to pour into.
maybe like 16s they can drive.
Well, yeah, that would help probably.
But yeah, my mom and dad spent a lot of time driving me back and forth to Jolton to that job up there, and then
That's not a short drive either.
it's not. It's
Living
not
in
at all.
Hendersonville and driving to
Yeah,
Jolton.
it was a good little ride, but you know, I don't have any. You know, they say not to have regrets in life. That, you know, I went to mortuary college. I didn't go to a 4-year school. I wasn't in a fraternity. I didn't get the full college experience. I visited, you know, some of my friends that
I went to online college, so you know,
but you know,
I just printed off a diploma.
I do hope to one day finish my bachelor's degree. I think that's something I would like. I know that is something I would like to accomplish, but you know, in all the spare time that I have, and I'm dwindling that down every day too. Haven't really, but you know, you got to make time to do certain things. But I will eventually do that. I may be 60 years old, but I'm going to get it done at some point.
Do you have a favorite passage from the Bible or anything that just like stands out to you? Like, this is what my
I've got a
go-to
couple.
verse.
Philippians 4:13 is a big one for me. I think it's a big one for a lot of people. Romans. I think it's. I'm going to pull my phone out and look it up. I think it's either Romans 9:10 or 8:10, and I'll tell you why. It's so. At Good Pasture, we had weekly devotionals, which was basically like a little miniature Church of Christ church service in a way.
Yeah.
We sang and did things like that. And so when I was in the 6th grade, we started school in August, and mid-September, late September, my teacher, she died unexpectedly. She and her husband, they lived over in Ballantrae here in Hendersonville, and she went on a walk every afternoon, and she didn't come back, and he pulled out of the driveway, and there's lights shone on her, and she had sat down on the curb and just died. And so I was reading one of the memory verses that next morning, and the president of the school came and spoke to us, and he ended up leading the devotional because it was a tough time and real emotional. And I'm trying to find the verse. 8:10. Now, if Christ is in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the spirit is life because of righteousness. And I just always thought that was a good verse. Of course, we were reading out of the old
King James.
we had the NKJV, the New King James version, and then we went to the NIV version. But if Christ is in you, even though your body is dead, is subject to death because of sin, the Spirit gives life because of righteousness. So it obviously everybody's got their translation, but those are probably two of my verses. And I obviously I think that John 3:16 is a big one. If Bruce Chester listens to this, I'll get in trouble. But when Bruce speaks at a graveside service, he talks about John 3:16, and then he talks about John 3:17 that says, so John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave it the only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but ever have lasting life. And verse 17 goes on to say that for God did not send his Son to the world to condemn the world, but that through the world through him that we may live. And that's a lot of stuff right there in those two verses that that he sent his Son to die for us, but not to condemn us, and that we can live through him. And what more can you say? And so what I do with being around different religions, there's a Catholic church here in Hendersonville, Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church, and I know lots of people that go to church there. It's a great parish there, and we're very honored that we serve a lot of their families at our funeral home. I actually have a funeral mass there on Saturday, and but in the Catholic faith and other in the Eucharist-based faiths like Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopalian, they talk a lot about saints, and so in the Bible, when Jesus dies, the man that takes him and puts him in his tomb is Joseph of Arimathea. Well, he's a saint, Saint Joseph of Arimathea, and he puts him in one of his tombs. Well, Saint Joseph of Arimathea is the patron saint of funeral directors, just like Saint Michael is the patron saint of police officers. And ironically enough, the Episcopal Church here in Hendersonville is Saint Joseph of Arimathea Episcopal Church. Which is
right down the road.
Yeah, right down the road. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. But I wish I had the prayer of Saint Joseph of Arimathea, but it's pretty interesting, pretty neat to read those things, and that is the other thing about that I love at my job is just being able to learn about different denominations and their traditions and what's and the reasons behind them too is very interesting.
So a question that's not as faith-based and everything, because you mentioned earlier you do like shooting and guns. What gun do you have that is your favorite and or means the most to you? And I ask everybody that kind of question that says they're either a hunter or they just like collecting guns, and
gun that
most of the answers are kind of similar. So
that means the most to me. So,
and are they the same?
They're not the same. My favorite gun is a Glock 22 40 caliber pistol, the one that I carried when I worked to patrol at the sheriff's office. Probably because I've shot it more than any other gun in my collection. And not because I was ever in any kind of shootouts or anything.
But that's the one you're most comfortable with.
That's the one I trained with yearly and shot the most, and I'm the most comfortable with. But ironically, not the one that I carry when I do security here at the church. I carry a Glock 19X, which is my second favorite probably. It's a tremendously fabulous shooting weapon, and it's a lot of fun to shoot. My most sentimental is probably my dad. When my brother and I were, how old was I? Maybe 14, maybe 13. I don't know. My dad had a friend that had a farm up in Castaigne Springs, and he had a dove hunt every year, and he invited us to it. And so my dad sent us so that we went to the hunter safety course and got our licenses. And my dad he didn't have any shotguns, so he borrowed some shotguns from one of my uncles. And he's like, we're not going to borrow shotguns anymore. So he bought us shotguns for Christmas. I later found out that mom and dad were, I don't want to say struggling, they were struggling a little bit financially. It was after we had sold our dealership or before that, and there were some things happened. And I later found out my dad went to Academy and put those guns on layaway for us. So I was paying on them a little bit at a time, and that's just pretty cool. So it's a Remington 870 pump, 12 gauge shotgun, and it's just a basic.
Right. But you would not sell that gun for anything. If anything,
my son
Rand might have it.
Rand will get it one day.
But I find that's what I find interesting about asking that question is because usually, like Foster, he has a lot of different guns, but the one that is his favorite or means most is not the most expensive. It's the one with that sentimental value there's something behind it.
Yeah, that's not the most expensive one I have for sure, but it means the most. And I think that everybody probably has that same one. But yeah, that's for sure. And ironically enough, as far as shotguns are concerned, it's also the one I shoot the best. And I've got some nicer shotguns than it, but I can shoot. It's amazing that I would like shooting like trap and skeet and stuff. I can shoot it quicker
with the pump action
than I can with over and under, which is which is stupid, but just whatever. It is what it is.
Is there anything that you want people to know about what they should expect when it is time for them to come see somebody like you? Or should they do this beforehand or anything like that?
Yes to all the above. Pre-planning is very important in what we do, and it puts a plan in place for your family to know, at least at the minimum, put pen to paper and write down what you want. And people can come in, you can come in and you can pick out everything you want. You can pay for it in advance if you want to. It does save you money. But if you just want to put it on paper and have it like that, that's fine too.
Is that a big benefit, this having like, hey, I'd like to have this song?
Absolutely.
The minimum.
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna. So Alan Lagarde, who's a member here at First Baptist, he's on our team and he handles pre-planning and he does a tremendous job. Alan's a great guy, great Christian man. I kind of left him out. Alan, I would consider him a mentor. He's a great guy, and so he's been on our team now almost. It's been 2 years or 3 years. Anyways. And he helps families every day. He did it today. He met with actually a family from here at church that was just doing some pre-planning. And I'm going to use. So there was. Well, I shouldn't name names. So a church member here, we took care of he and his wife, both of their services, and he was very detailed and had who he wanted to speak, who his pallbearers were going to be, what songs he wanted. The only thing we had to amend was the pallbearers because a couple of the pallbearers had passed away. And so we had to move some of those around a little bit.
Right.
But, I was able to show his family and they had copies of it too because he was methodical and had it all and detail oriented. So they had a copy too at home. And we were able to do it exactly how we wanted it. And it was great, and so that's the biggest thing is putting pen to paper and putting. We used to say putting a permanent plan in place. Well, I hate to say permanent because it's not permanent. Right. It can be changed. Things can be adjusted. Things can be amended. But putting a plan in place so we know what you want and what your wishes are. And I don't think that there is too young of an age, and I don't think there's too old of an age. I think it's a very important thing to do. I'm guessing that you and Jamie have probably had that conversation before because of what you do for a living. If something happened,
you would think with her being an attorney and me being a police officer, like we'd have a will and everything. But she does wills. We don't have one. We are slacking like crazy.
Well, actually, we do have wills. And
like I have in my head an idea of certain songs I'd like, but I've never wrote it down or shared it with anybody. And it's like I probably should, because you never know. Like
it's an important thing to do, and I think that a lot of people just don't want to think about it.
Right.
I mean,
it makes it too real.
I don't think it's and I think with Christians, it's not the fear of dying, it's the thought of what you leave behind.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a big thing for me too.
Especially once you have children.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
And you want to be here with your kids as long as you can be with them.
Yeah.
Or I do at least. I think that's. I think I do. There is advantages in planning things in advance, and there are that way that you make your wishes known, and your family can follow those. And there can be adjustments made if needed, but for the 9 times out of 10, people are going to do what you want done.
I would say if somebody's listening to this, they have questions about it, they can reach out to Randy. They can get a hold of him through his Sumner Funeral and Cremation.
Yeah.
If you already have a different place picked out, we're not endorsing certain businesses, but reach out to them and say, hey, I need to get a plan in place. Can you help me with that? And any funeral home is going to be able to do that.
Yep. And I'll say this too, that this is an educational piece here. So we own a funeral home. We own 2 funeral homes and we have a crematory. We do not own a cemetery, but that doesn't mean that we can't take care of your loved one. We go to any cemetery anywhere when we facilitate.
Yeah, you were going to come to Florida as a city cemetery and have weird rules.
Yeah. So, we're gonna serve the family, and also that if you make arrangements with the funeral home, the arrangements belong to you. They don't belong to the funeral home. So if a staff changes or something changes, or you want to move that around, you can take it to wherever you move out of state or move to another community. You can transfer that wherever you want to take it. It's portable, and I think that's a big thing that people are not educated enough on. Because actually the church members that I was talking about, they actually made their funeral arrangements at a different establishment and transferred them to us.
Yeah. So, well, it's stuff that people don't think about because it's not
Right.
It's not like running out to the grocery store. You're not running to the funeral home and making plans all the time. And a lot of people just don't make them until you have to.
And we see that every day, and that's okay too.
Right.
That's what we have people will say, I'm sorry we didn't come in beforehand. It's okay. This is what we do. We do this every day, literally.
You probably have more that don't than you do.
You'd be surprised. We have a lot of families. We have a lot of families that prearrange.
That's
we have a lot. We do seminars
helps the family.
with families. I mean, just this week we have 2 seminars on. We always do a lunch and a dinner, and I think it's on Thursday. So yeah, May 14th, which I know this will air way after that. But and Alan, we host them. Alan speaks at them, and we provide a meal. And there's no selling involved. It's just strictly informational. If you want to get the free meal and not come back, that's okay. But we're going to give you the information, and we're going to talk about it.
And that's part of you being part of the community. Is doing that kind of stuff where it's like, hey, it's not.
Yeah, we try.
We hope you come to us, but if you don't, here's information for you that can be very helpful.
And we try to be involved in the community in other ways too. We can't be all the places all the time, right. But we give. There's certain organizations we donate money to, things we sponsor when we can. Unfortunately, we just don't. I wish we could do them all. We can't.
Right.
You have to budget some things. But we try to be involved in the community in other ways. And if anybody is listening to this and wants, one of us to come and speak to a group or something like that, we always do that too. And there's no obligation whatsoever. It's strictly informational, and it can just be sitting down and answering questions and doing a Q&A session, or it can be a presentation on what we do and how we do it, or just a general presentation on planning and just learning more about what other people have done as well. So, but yeah, if people want information, they can contact us at either of our locations. My email is really easy. It's randy@sumnerfuneral.com, and you can email me. And it's on my phone. It's on my computer. I have it with me all the time, so I can really usually respond pretty quickly. We're always here to be of service to our community and to people, and we want to help anybody any way we can.
This is going to be the last question I ask you. You've been doing this. You're a funeral director, and you're working, and you have a guy that sits there, and they've lived a really good life. They're a good guy, and they come to you like, Randy, I've lived this good life. I do the right thing. I don't lie to people. I'm honest. What's it matter if I'm a Christian? Why does that matter? I'm doing the right thing. What would you tell them?
What would I tell them?
Or say it's a friend from the sheriff's office that you worked with. I've given my life to serving the public. Does it really matter if I choose to be a Christian or not? If I'm not earning my way?
I would say that I think that it's admirable what you've done serving your community or being a good person and doing the right thing. But the most important thing you can do is to give your life to Christ and to see the difference that makes in your life, along with everything else that you have done and will do. And he's there. He's always ready.
Right.
Always.
Yeah. There's no earning your way to heaven.
No.
Because we don't deserve it.
We don't. And this is not me I am not a biblical scholar by any means. I don't claim to be an expert by any shape, form, or fashion. But do I think that there are things that when I get to heaven that I'm going to have to answer for? There probably is.
Yeah.
But that's what I'll have to deal with. And I don't know that there's like a line of people and here's your list, here's your list. I don't know how it works, but I do think that there are. And I also, I when I was baptized in the lake, I talked a lot. I talked to Pastor Bruce Chesser about it a lot, and I talked to Cindy Hodges about it a lot. And I told her, I said, I'm going to do it the next time they do a lake baptism. I'm going to do it. She said, well, I don't know what it's going to be. I said, well, you just let me know. And it wasn't long, she sent me a message. She said, hey, this is like baptism. I said, sign me up. And I said, I want, Pastor Bruce to do it. And there's a picture at my in our house of him and me. It's on one of the tables in our home. My wife's an interior designer, so I don't know what all the tables are called, but it's on one of the tables that's of the 12 or 13 tables that's in our house. Maybe 25 tables. But I made a Facebook post about it, and I'm a big movie guy, and I know you've probably seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there's a scene in the movie where they get baptized, and the character is played by a guy named Tim Blake Nelson, who I actually met on an airplane a couple months ago. It was really cool, but his name is Delmar O'Donnell, and he goes, "Come on in, boys, the water's fine." And that's just, he's right here waiting for us. Accept him and come on in because the water's fine.
That's great.
It is. And if you get baptized at the church, the water is warmer than it is in a hooker.
That's for sure.
FYI.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll say something funny that there's you can see. So Bruce did my baptism, Pastor Bruce did, but Brett's standing behind him because I'm kind of a big boy, and he gave me a little hand up.
So, that ground's not as stable in the lake as it is in the baptistry.
No, but I just always there's a lot you can learn from different things in life, and believe it or not, I do think there's things that you can learn from movies, and that's one of those things I've always thought about, that come on in, boys, the water's fine, because and I think that Jesus is right here. He's got his arms open, and he's just, come on over, because everything's gonna be fine, and I'm here to help you, and I'm here to be with you, and for the rest of your life and beyond. So
that's great.
I hope that answers your question.
No, it's great. I like that. I'm going to say a prayer for us, and we're going to be
Please
done. God, thank you for this day and letting us be able to be here with Randy. The stuff we talked about today, I hope it can have an impact on the people that listen to this. Maybe answer some questions that they may have had about, hey, what do I need to expect when I'm dealing with family members going through the end of life and everything, that they know they have a resource that they can reach out to. That we have a good, strong Christian man that is in that position that's able to help them and lead them the right way. Be with Randy, be with his family. It's a lot. It's a hard life dealing with the stuff a funeral director deals with on a daily basis, and that he's able to have outlets for that and be the good Christian man that he is, and have those others that are able to help him, and also that he's able to be there for the other people in his line of work also, and be that person they can reach out to. Let this podcast be able to go reach some men, help them find Jesus, and to live their life honoring you. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Path, a podcast production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. For more information, or if you have questions, please visit our website at FBCHville.com. That's FBCHville.com.